Oh, lots of my friends keep asking me how to handle sorrow in life, how to handle loss in life, and how to handle grief. Because all these things, be it loss and the resultant factors like grief and sorrow, these have become such common phenomena that people whom we know, someone or the other is continuously facing one of these things. One faces different kinds of losses, like there is a loss of job. People are getting pink slips continuously, and there are divorces. There is death in the family. There is some very serious malady, some kind of disease, and we are continuously facing different kinds of losses, which make us go into some kind of low, and that low can best be described as grief and can be described as sorrow. And we find that often this loss, which results in grief and sorrow, leads to depression that needs some kind of medication. At the lowest level, we have, say, only the feeling of low, where if you eat well, if you sleep well, if you chat, if you move around with friends, you come out of that feeling of low. And in many other cases, slowly it moves towards depression, where some kind of medication sets you right. And then slowly it might turn into clinical depression, where you lose interest in life. And in worst cases, one may even want to end one's life so that one can get out of the misery for once and all. Some time ago I met somebody, in fact, as the luck would have, Belrumat being a very religious place, very sacred place, once in a while we come across people who are somehow depressed and they want to end their life. There have been many occasions when I met people who say that there has been some kind of severe loss. Once I met one young lady, she was crying piteously, and her family was there, and she had come all the way to commit suicide simply because her husband had died some time ago, and she had a small kid, maybe 3 months or 6 months old. We tried to reason with her, and I even tried telling her that, see, even if you die, you will be born again. And she kept insisting that once my eyes are closed, that means once I die, it's all over. Anyway, somehow she was persuaded and she was taken back. So these things make us wonder, is there a way out? Is there a way out of this kind of grief? Is there a way out of this kind of sorrow? How can one come to terms with loss? How can one cope with this kind of stress? The pain that comes due to this kind of loss, how can one handle? This is not an easy thing, but at the same time it's not an impossible thing. Before we really understand how to handle loss, how to handle grief, how to handle sorrow, first let's look at life. How we lead our daily life. What life means to us, what present means to us, what future means to us. This can best be understood. The plight of or the condition of a common man can best be understood if we imagine that we are walking in darkness with, say, a candlelight, and we can call it candlelight approach. We know that there were greats like Jesus. Even when he was condemned to crucifixion, he was to be crucified, he did not feel any sense of loss or pain. We know of a Buddha, when somehow he got prohibited food, or maybe it was poisoned, He didn't have any sense of loss. He blessed the person who had served his food. And we know of Sri Ramakrishna, who was suffering from cancer and who was in deep pain, who was in deep trouble, but he never had that sense of loss. He never despaired. He never had any kind of sorrow. And on the other hand, we have ordinary mortals who are continuously suffering. And this can best be understood by two approaches, candlelight approach and sunlight approach. In this sunlight approach, you can see the entire thing. You see yourself, you see the world, you see everything. And whatever is coming, you know. Or at least you accept. But in candlelight approach, it's slightly different. It's like you're walking through maybe a thick forest and it's dark. And you have got a candlelight or a torch with a very small amount of light that it can emit. The visibility is highly limited. Now, when we are walking with that kind of light, we can just see one step or two steps ahead. Now just imagine when we are walking, we know that this is my path and I must step aside when there is thorn or when there is a pebble or when there is some animal and suddenly something erupts. Unexpectedly something comes. There is unexpected development and then we don't know what to do. Under normal conditions, whenever there is some kind of development, something comes up. We have been trained all our life how to handle thorns, how to handle pebbles, how to handle snakes. But when there is suddenly something comes up, say there is a roaring tiger, you don't know how to handle it. And you get startled and you don't know what to do. In the sunlight approach, for people who are really masters, they can see the entire thing. If a snake is coming, they know snake is coming, and when a tiger is coming, they know that a tiger is coming. So they are not unusually afraid. They don't get scared that easily. But persons like us, we are moving with a candlelight in our hand, and because of that, we have a very limited access to future. And when there is a sudden, you can say sudden shock, sudden development, we cannot handle it. And when that shock, there is no more a surprise element, it's a shock element, pain element. That because see, when we are walking with that limited candlelight, we might come across something good unexpectedly. We might come across something real bad unexpectedly. When something good comes, we say that, oh, it's a pleasant surprise. And when it's bad, we say it's an unpleasant shock. And that unpleasant shock, in extreme case, can be tremendous pain resulting in severe loss. And once there is severe loss, we feel as if our life is broken, we are left with nothing. So, once we understand how exactly this comes, that means basically it means that there is some kind of unexpected development. Why unexpected? Because see, ultimately in life there is nothing unexpected. The problem is that we know or we can expect or we can imagine a very limited future. We can't see future in advance. So for example, it's evening now. I can imagine myself that once it's late evening, I'll go back to my room, I'll sleep, and suddenly I find that something has gone wrong. Because it's not in my plans. It's not something that I had imagined. And then I feel worried, I feel bad, I feel cheated. Under normal conditions, you feel bad. But in extreme surprises, there's a shock element. Now see, when there is some severe loss or there is some bereavement where someone very, very, very dear passes away, then or there is a real severe loss, then what happens? That the accumulated training that we have is no more of any help. Here, let us use one term. Here we discuss that when there is that candlelight approach, when we are moving, things are coming in our way like thorns and rocks. and we have been trained how to handle them. This training, this mental training that we acquire, mental training that we acquired since our childhood, from our parents, from our teachers, from our learning, from our books, from our spiritual teachers, from the scriptures, the combined term, although we call mental training, but the technical term in Sanskrit, the technical term for all that we have learned all our life, the mental training that we have received, is known as smriti, which translated roughly becomes memory. Here memory does not mean what we retain. Memory means the training that we have acquired and that we have absorbed within ourselves, so that when some situation comes, we can react to it rightly. The training that we have acquired to react properly is known as mental training, and it comes from smriti. Now whenever crisis comes, some expected crisis comes, for example, let's say there is a member in the family who got cancer or who got some very serious disease, and slowly that person is withering away. Now the mental training over life, over since our childhood, is that a person who gets such kind of disease dies. So slowly we get prepared for the bereavement, and when the person dies, we feel sad, but we don't feel despair. We feel sad, but we are not broken. We don't come to grief. And even if that grief comes, it may come in short intensity, but for a very short period. But here we are not discussing grief or sorrow for a short period. We are discussing sorrow and grief that affects us for a long time. Now, to understand what happens to smriti when there is a massive attack, when there is a sudden loss, when there is a shock, let me quote from a Valmiki Ramayana, where Sri Ramchandra was sent for exile for 14 years for no fault of his. And when that was done, his mother Kaushalya, who otherwise was a very devoted lady, devoted wife, she started abusing and condemning her husband, King Dashratha. And then Dashratha was highly repentant. He folded his hands, asked for forgiveness, and then Kausalya said, don't think that I am a bad wife, don't think that I am a bad person, but this sorrow, the technical term in Sanskrit is shok, sorrow. This shok has shattered my smriti. I have lost my shrutam, the collective, the entire thing that you have learned, and that gets preserved is known as shrutam. It has come from, it comes from smriti, or rather from shruti, it comes from shruti that has been heard, and that hearing comes from different levels. So it says that itself gets shattered, and then she adds, it's easy to defend oneself or fight an enemy who comes with a sword, but it is so difficult and it's impossible to come to terms with this kind of sudden loss, some kind of grief. It even takes away the smriti. Now, see, when this smriti gets lost, then we start behaving strangely. The training that has been there, for example, there is that famous poem by Whom They Brought Her Warrior Dead. So there is about that young lady whose husband had gone for a battle and he returned dead, and the wife was not crying, and there was no way that she could be made to cry, and everybody thought that she will die of the grief. And then finally an elderly lady brought her small child, and put that baby in the lap of the mom, and just looking at her, she started shedding tears. And then they said, she will now survive. This is a very interesting thing. Well, in spite of knowing that her husband is a soldier and who may die in the battle, she could not come to terms. That means when the dead body came, her smriti, the learning that she had acquired all her life about life, the mental training got completely dashed. And this happens nearly with everyone. It is then that either we get depressed or we become suicidal. And it's like, if you go back to that candlelight example, it's like sudden appearance of a wild beast, a dangerous beast in that candlelight zone. Because although we keep on talking about live in present, don't think of future, but every one of us, we have some idea of how our future would be, say after some hours, and maybe after a day or two, maybe after 10 years, after 30 years. We have some vague ideas. And nearer you come to present, more concrete is your idea. And in that concrete idea, suddenly there is a rush of some unpleasant development and we crash. So now the question is how to handle it. That's the main issue. And there are some very nice books and there are some very good articles on how to cope with this kind of grief when there is sorrow, which is life-threatening. So, first thing that we can say that, which practically everybody knows, that time is the best healer. So first, how to handle it? First one is, time is the best healer, no doubt about it. But the problem is that you may not have the time. Even before it heals you, you may do something stupid. You may get into clinical depression. You might commit suicide. So the second very important thing is support system. A very important thing about handling this kind of loss, handling this kind of suffering, handling this kind of grief is to have a very strong support system. You see, we invest in lots of things. We invest money in houses, in cars, in lots of things. But we don't invest in relationships. We socialize, but we don't invest. When people are there in need, we don't reach out. And you'll see that quite often seen that successful people at the end of their life, when they're reaching the end of their life, they feel so lonely. They will feel lonely because they did not invest. And that's why it's seen that whenever somebody is rising very high in whatever field, if he meets a failure, he suddenly finds that he's broken. There is that famous saying that a man who is down fears no fall. There are two reasons. Because a person who is down, he has a very good support system, usually. Because people who are suffering, they tend to bond together. And to succeed, you need to move alone. And when you move alone, and if that shock comes, two things come. One, there is that massive sense of loss because you have something. A man who is down, he has nothing. And secondly, you don't have any support system. Because you don't have any support system, there are not people who will really come to support and say that, okay, we are there. For example, there is a child. There is a class 3, class 4 child. He fails in an exam. And he's scared what might happen. But if his parents are really understanding type, they will immediately kind of take that baby in the arm and baby, son, nothing matters. Don't worry about this. This happens all through our life. All of us make mistakes. And because of that mistake, there is a loss of face. When there is that loss of face, we feel lost. And we need a very strong support system. And worse, things may come on their own. Fate may send you something nasty. Because we don't walk in that sunlight of future. We cannot see future. We don't know what destiny has kept for us. An incarnation of God, a master of spirituality, they know things. They know things in advance. We don't. And so you never know what destiny might send, what fate may send. So we need to have a very strong support system. This is for future investment. But now, the problem has already come. Now you cannot go on building a support system. But it's just suggestion that it's better to have a support system ready for any such eventuality. A third one is, as they say, trying to take the mind away. You have to try to take the mind away from the loss that you have suffered. In the poem, Whom They Brought a Warrior Did, that is what that elderly lady did. That young lady's mind was totally fixated. It was fixed on her husband. And suddenly, when that baby came, her mind was taken away. So, this loss, this sorrow, that cannot be healed. But the mind can be temporarily moved away, and that saves a person from, say, depression or from suicide. But the most important thing in handling these kind of sorrow is rebuilding smriti. The most important thing is the four. The fourth. And of course, there are things like they say that you have to shed tears. If you shed tears, you feel light and things like that. Yes, we agree. But that is for the lighter sadness. When it comes to very serious disaster, where your life is under threat, you feel threatened, you feel that you might commit suicide, you feel that you may never laugh again. If you think that the world has crashing down on you and everything has crashed around you, the only way to handle it is to rebuild smriti. Rebuilding smriti is something very interesting. Now let's go back to Mahabharata, where Krishna is the charioteer of Arjuna. And Arjuna looks at the opposition army and he refuses to fight. He's suddenly filled with shok and moha. He's filled with delusion that, oh God, all these people are going to die, so many people will die. And this fills him with sorrow. That sorrow has not yet come, but is about to come, because people will be dying like anything. And Sri Krishna just, he smiles, he doesn't care for it. And we find that Sri Krishna never cared for these things, because he was the person who was walking in the sunlight. He knew that these things are the laws of life, and things move like that, and he was never bothered. But Arjuna was somebody who was walking in that candlelight zone. And when that shock came, he lost that smriti. And when Sri Krishna taught him in detail, so entire Gita was taught to Arjuna, and after the entire talk, Arjuna says, Je nasto moha gata sandeha. His moha is gone, and smriti labdva. I have got back my smriti. So basically, Sri Krishna did not teach him anything new. Arjuna already knew all that. Just that, by that teaching, in a fresh way, or in a different way, or in a more cohesive way, in a more organized way, he brought the smriti, the mental training, the learning, the spiritual leanings and spiritual learning of Arjuna back where it belonged. You see, there is a very interesting thing about our scriptures, and you'll find that in our scriptures, be it Upanishad, be it Gita, they teach you how to handle emotions. They teach you very well how to handle emotions. They teach you how to handle your lustings, your greed, your fear. They don't teach you how to overcome sorrow. Because, very surprisingly, sorrow is the most powerful emotion that we have, and it is directly related to our existence. And one or two or three teachings do not work. You need entire scripture for that. You need a full mental training for that. You need that entire smriti for that. And that's why, see, if you read Gita very closely, you will see that Gita discusses how to overcome this, how to overcome that, how to this, but it nowhere discusses how to overcome sorrow. Because to overcome sorrow, you need that entire Gita. To overcome sorrow, you need that entire Valmiki Ramayana. To overcome sorrow, you need to have that entire Bible. So, the only way to overcome sorrow is to move around people, or people who are capable, people who are around. It is their duty to go on supplying, to go on infusing that person with strength. And the person who himself is in sorrow, for him, the only way is to take recourse to those kind of training that can infuse him with strength once again. And there is absolutely no shortcut, there is absolutely no way that one can handle sorrow without this. Because ultimately sorrow and expectation, sadness and expectation, these two make this world. This world moves on only these two things. We expect something, and if we lose something, we feel sorrow, we feel broken. So it's the importance of smriti. Here smriti is not ordinary memory. Smriti means the learning that has accumulated within us throughout our life, and the power to implement that through our intellect. So, in one of our Upanishads, there is a prayer that says, Shrutam me gopaya. Oh Lord, whatever I have learned, may that be well protected within my mind, so that when there is a crisis, I may not lose my balance. See, in this way, if you look at things in this way, you'll see that people who are believers, those who believe in God, they are better placed because their smriti do not get lost very easily. In spirituality, or through personality building books, or through counseling books, when the entire thing is built up once again, slowly we are in a position to fight it out. And that's why the important thing for us is to know that such kind of bereavement, such kind of loss, such kind of severity can attack us anytime. Its intensity may vary. It may have various shades of intensity. It may make us sad. It may break us. So the most important thing is to have a support system. In that support system, there must be some wise people, some elderly people. And once that attack is there, to go to them and to have that smriti built. So the sum of the entire talk is that bereavements will come, losses will come. We will feel sad, we will feel broken. The only way to handle them is to have a very good, strong system from the beginning, support system from the beginning. And the job of that support system is to infuse strength once again, and this strength is nothing new. It is just the smriti that was there, the learning that was there, the power that was there, which loses its gravity, it loses its center of gravity, it loses its center, that gets rebuilt. So although there are piecemeal solutions, there are patchwork suggestions, but really they don't work. The only thing that works is the spiritual training and the training that training of smriti. Basically what smriti does is it teaches us to accept. The goal of all such spiritual training is acceptance. Come to terms. Coming to terms means to accept the situation. Whether you read Gita, you read Upanishad, you read Bible, you read Quran, essentially it teaches you to accept. Acceptance is spirituality. When that loss comes, we are not willing to accept that situation. How it came, who ordered that, why it came. Rebuilding that spiritual power, rebuilding smriti basically means you learn to accept. This can come only through support system or by reading spiritual books or holding on to that. There is no other solution to it. Thank you.